I hate this movie. You've probably heard me say this phrase so many times on this channel, but I really, really mean it this time. Strippers vs. Werewolves is one of the most pointless, basic, poorly thought out, poorly edited, poorly acted mess of a motion picture that I have ever had the displeasure of actually paying money for. Because, yeah, I paid money for this thing. I mean, I actually walked into a store, HMV to be precise, picked this piece of trash up, and under the guise of assuming that it would be a funny film to force my boyfriend to sit through with me with some whiskey and some takeout, walked up to the counter and passed over my hard-earned money in exchange for this thing. I remember the cashier asking in a friendly manner whether the movie was for me or for someone else, since it was the Christmas season and this was a natural thing to ask a customer. And I just hesitantly replied, it's for me. And the cashier had a very strange look on their face. However, now I feel embarrassed beyond belief because I think the cashier was trying to warn me, silently, not to buy this thing without just straight up slapping the case out of my hand. Considering the cover, this is a very odd movie for me to be buying for myself, but I think they had seen it and didn't want me to buy it. I mean, they can't just straight up say don't buy it because that would be very bad for business, but I think they were trying to warn me, and I'm a fool because I didn't see the signs, they were right there in front of me. It took me months to even sit down and watch the damn thing, because other than the fact that it was a 15, the cover made it look like it was pornographic. And watching porn with my boyfriend ain't something that we're kind of into, and the only other person that I watch bad movies with is my brother, and I sure as hell am not watching something pornographic with him. Watching The Beaster Bunny was awkward enough. However, a couple of weeks ago, as of me writing the script for this video, my boyfriend, our friends, and I randomly said, hey, why don't we do a bad movie night? And so we gathered together to go through some films that we hadn't seen yet, but we knew were bad judging by their IMDb ratings. Most of these films I actually already owned. I thought it would be a good chance to gather some video material on top of spending time with some friends, and since I already had Strippers vs. Werewolves on hand, and the people I was going to watch it with were boys, so, you know, strippers, werewolves, two things boys love, we ended up choosing it as one of the 3 films that we enjoyed that night. I mean, with a name like Strippers vs. Werewolves, you'd assume that the thing was amazing beyond belief, something that even if it wasn't that good, it would still be entertaining, what with the implication of boobs and violence and boobs. These are 2 things that I love personally, for crying out loud, so how the actual hell did this film mess up so badly that I didn't even care about the half-naked ladies and the blood and the gore? I mean, spoilers, but the stripping is pretty damn bad in the movie. I've seen better stripping and pole dancing from amateur pole dancers from when me and my boyfriend went to an event together. This film had the raw materials in front of it to be a great bad movie, if not a good movie in general, so what the hell happened? Well, ladies and gentlemen and non-binary folk and whatever you identify as, that's what we're here to find out. So, here we go. This is going to be a long and angry one, people, so strap yourselves in. I'm not giving this thing any mercy. So, Strippers vs. Werewolves was a colossal failure in every way possible, including financial gain. The film only took in a whopping £38 in the UK box office when it came out. Do you lot remember in my last review when I gave Zombievers shit for only taking in just more than $44,000? Well, imagine my utter bafflement when I saw how little this garbage took in. It's embarrassing beyond belief. If I were anyone involved with this film, I would just want my name cut out from any advertisements of it whatsoever, because that is really bad. It almost seems like a joke that it earned that little. But I can't say that I'm upset by these numbers though, because this film deserved to earn nothing from the general public. No one should be subjected to it. If I could go back in time and prevent myself from bringing it to my boyfriend's place that night and just let us all watch Grizzly, which I'll be reviewing at some point on this channel as well, by the way, like some of the boys wanted, then I'd fucking do it. I still haven't watched Grizzly, but anything has to be better than this thing. I think the thing that I hate the most about Strippers vs. Werewolves is the fact that it has talented people attached to it, but the director was so incompetent that he couldn't do anything with them and wasted their talent. Billy Murray, who voice acted in the Call of Duty games, has starred in British television programs such as The Bill and EastEnders, is the villain of the film. And I'll talk about his performance later, but TLDR, it was way better than this movie deserved. Steven Berkoff stars in this movie as well for a few minutes, and I don't think I need to explain who this talented ass actor is, but he's been in Octopussy, A Clockwork Orange, one of my favourite movies ever by the way, Doctor Who, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Star Trek Deep Space Nine, and just loads of other successful movies and TV series. This guy is kind of a legend. How they got him to be in this thing, I will never know. They also have Adele Sylvia, who isn't that much of a talented actress, judging from her performance within this, which is too dreadful to pin down to her just not caring about the role. But she starred in Hollyoaks, Doctor Who, and Emmerdale, and she plays one of the main strippers. And I have to wonder, why would she take such a degrading role when she's proven that she can get into decent TV programs like Doctor Who? Plus, they also have...
So I can get a new pack. A new family.
Robert Englund? Robert Freddy Krueger, my favourite horror movie icon of all time and one of my favourite actors of all time, England? How the... what the... How the hell did they drag him into this? I know he was in Funhouse Massacre recently, which wasn't that great, but at least the movie was entertaining enough that I watched it 3 times while it was on Netflix. What the hell? My world is crashing down. My world is crashing down. Not only this, but he only has 10 lines in the whole thing. And, sorry, but spoilers again, he's the best part of the movie, even though he's only in, like, what, 2 scenes? You can't beat the villain from Nightmare on Elm Street. He's a fucking boss when it comes to playing a villain, and he should have been the main villain, or at least on the same level as Billy Murray's character. Then maybe this movie would have been way more bearable. They both together could have saved this damn thing. You know what, I'm actually kind of more confused as to how they got Freddie England on the set of this film though. And I use the word set very loosely because there's like 4 locations in the damn thing. This is obviously a British film. It was filmed in Croydon and it has a mainly British cast, so did they really fly this amazing American actor to the UK to film these 2 scenes? Actually, thinking about it, that's probably where all the budget went. Flights from the UK to the US aren't cheap. However, failing the acting talent behind the film, before I even talk about the actual events of this thing, I want to rant about one little itty bitty aspect of it that was bugging me the second time I watched it for this review. There's this opening sequence that, much like the one for Zombievers, I actually really enjoyed and I liked, and it kind of convinced me that the film was gonna be good when me and my friends first watched it. They use the song Hungry Like the Wolf, which is kinda giggle-worthy at the very least considering the movie is what it is. And it has these really cool looking comic book style pictures throughout the majority of it, and after seeing this and then watching through the whole thing, I kind of came to the conclusion that this movie shouldn't have been a movie. It should have been a comic book. I really hope that once I finish describing this thing to you that you'll understand why I say this, but I can imagine this much more as a satirical or even just a fun little comic book series more than I can a movie. And it seems as though the editor kind of agrees with me because they keep using these comic book style transitions to make it seem like a comic book movie. The plot just isn't something that translates well into a cinematic setting. I mean, maybe if it had lore surrounding the story and characters that were interesting and a better budget than this film had, maybe it could have worked. But the thing is, this would only happen if the property was already something that people cared about, or at the very least liked before the movie was even made, kinda like the Marvel movies are. Then, maybe studio executives would see dollar signs and throw money at the idea, which would make the team creating it work a lot better and harder to make it good, and the budget would be better so the effects would be better. But the thing is, I would much prefer to read this than watch the movie again. The events in the film would make for a good first volume of a comic, to be honest. I've never had an hour-and-a-half long movie feel like the length of a Marvel movie without being entertained before, but this one somehow managed it. Anyway, rant over, let's describe what happens in this piece of shit, shall we? So, we start out in the past, in 1984, at a strip club when... Fuck! Whoa, what? Oh shit, yeah, I'm hyped! I'm hyped for this movie, oh my god! Oh right, I just remembered what I'm watching. Yeah, okay, the one thing I can give this movie is that it really doesn't fuck about, and it knows how to open the first scene. The explosion made me and the guys I watched this with think that this was going to be a great movie, along with the comic book opening that I mentioned earlier, and that plays right after the explosion. This is unironically how you start a movie well. Jonathan Glendinning, the director, knows his stuff when it comes to opening up a story. But after these few minutes, the terribleness of strippers vs. werewolves starts to sink in. So, right after a great opening, we get straight into what we came here for. Strippers! The main character, named Justice, god that is so on the nose, dances for a guy when he starts to jizz his pants? Oh wait, he's turning into a werewolf for some reason. It's not really explained why he decided to transform here, since the rest of the werewolves don't tend to just transform when hot girls are around them, except the one who's a bit mentally retarded, but I guess he just suddenly felt hungry or something? So, Justice does what anyone else would do in the same situation and stabs him in the eye with a silver pen and kills him. Do what you want, do what you It may sound like I'm being sarcastic, even though most people probably would genuinely kill a werewolf if they transformed and went for them. But Justice later states that she didn't realise that the guy was a werewolf and just thought he was scary.
I stabbed him in the eye with my pen.
Why?
Well, he was scary.
Clowns are scary. There's no reason to go stabbing them in the eye with a biro, is it?
If you think he's scary, then run away and get the security guy, you psychopath. Don't stab him in the fucking eye. It's not like she didn't have a lot of time to run away anyway. He was very slowly walking up to her. Next, we get introduced to the rest of the strippers and the people who work at the club. We have Jeanette, probably the best female actress in this thing, which really isn't saying much. Harry, the guy who runs the bar and stuff, who's also very old good friends with Jeanette. Danny, who has a massive wide-on for the security guard. Raven, who's dating a vampire hunter and somehow doesn't realise that he's an actual vampire hunter and just thinks he's delusional. Brandy, who wants to be a musician or something. Franklin, the security guy. And Justice, who's a bit dim. There's our team of strippers, who are supposed to be the good guys and the characters that we're supposed to cheer for, even though the only ones who are really likeable are Jeanette, Danny, and Raven. The others can be eaten for all I care, they're just kind of annoying. Oh, and they have a girl who's a magician that could be useful for killing the werewolves, but they kill her off before she has a chance to do anything useful, even though she's probably the most useful one out of all of them. So next up, we're introduced to the werewolves, but not before being exposed to another decent actor playing a villain, who I want to follow and learn more about and research into his backstory. Oh, and he's been killed. So, in the werewolf corner, we have Scott, an Irish dude who pretends to sell houses at night to cover for him being a werewolf because his girlfriend is retarded and actually believes him. Did I mention that he's dating Justice? Carlos, a guy who always seems to be on coke.
I think you'll be fine. We're the baddest, meanest werewolves that ever fucking lived. No one messes with us. We fucking rock!
Werewolves, not werewolves.
Barker, someone who I can only assume is mentally challenged, and no, I'm not saying that to be edgy, he genuinely acts like he's mentally handicapped.
Fizzy lady, make Walker's winky fizzy.
Fuck's sake, man.
And our main villain, Ferris. A man that's actually a pretty scary werewolf, to be honest. That meanwhile, fucking hell. This is what I mean about the editing. Just make a comic book about this, for God's sake. You evidently want to. So, Justice and Franklin work quickly to get rid of the body of the werewolf, and Jeanette seems to know that he's a werewolf, but decides not to say anything to her girls yet, despite it being very valuable information if the werewolves are likely to attack them again. Meanwhile, the werewolves head out.
Yeah. Oh, we fucking showed those gangland fucks. I fucking loved that shit. We shoved our hairy fucking werewolf ding-dongs up their fucking ass, motherfucker. I wish I'd shat in his mouth.
God, Carlos is fucking nuts. I am convinced that the actor actually took crack before shooting these scenes.
The fewer people who know about this, the safer we're going to be. So we'll keep it between the three of us, understand? Between the four of us, understand? Close your mouth up, there's a love. And while you're at it, close the curtains.
Oh my god, this Angel character is so fucking annoying. She does nothing but act like she has PTSD from seeing a dead body. Get your shit together, woman. We then get a glimpse of the werewolf's hideout and...
It's like having your own fucking walk-in larder.
Guys, you do know that the internet exists and you can use it to watch this thing called pornography? You could just jerk it at home then, where you have privacy and you don't have to do it in front of other werewolves. Also, can I just point something out that really annoyed me when I watched this for the first time? No women get naked in the changing rooms of stores. I'm a woman, I know this. If we're trying on bras in Ann Summers, then yeah, we obviously have to take our bras off and show off our tits. But it's a rule with panties that you have to have your own on when trying them on as a health and safety measure. I mean, think about it. It would be fucking grim if you bought a pair of underwear that someone else had worn before you without having something covering their, you know, private area. This shit is unrealistic. And yes, I know that this is a movie called Strippers vs. Werewolves, but I like complaining about things. Leave me alone. So Justice decides to ask her friend Raven about the guys she killed, since her boyfriend is a vampire hunter and everything. But it seems like the two of them broke up.
I love you, baby.
Oh, really? Why?
Why do I love you?
Well, actually, yes. Yeah, look, I've never been in a relationship before. I've never been loved before. My own mother didn't love me.
Man, this guy reminds me of me. This is literally me when I date anybody. In all seriousness though, if I'm being real with you guys, this relationship is one that I'm actually interested in and I really enjoyed watching. The dynamic of a hot stripper dating a dude who by general conventions is not good enough for her, and even he believes that, is kind of different and interesting, especially because she clearly loves him a lot. Then throw in the fact that he's a vampire hunter and knows about demonic creatures and stuff, and we have a very cool couple who are actually really adorable together. And I, as an audience member, want them to be together. It's kind of a shame that they didn't get that much screen time because I'd love to see this couple develop within the story. Plus, I love this guy. He's pretty funny, to be honest.
I mean, you kill vampires for a living. You can recite 600 little spells from memory alone, and you trapped a ghost in a mirror.
Did he really trap a ghost in a mirror?
Yeah, but the ghost got out, remember? People died.
You can speak 17 languages, including Fox. And then you can cook. And you can recite whole dialogue from Star Crash. How could you be possibly cooler?
Why? I could have a motorcycle.
He's one of the only characters in the whole thing that made me genuinely laugh. Anyways, as this conversation is going on, Franklin gets rid of the body.
Foster's. Good call.
The other werewolves end up realizing that their friend has been hurt or killed or something and decide that they need to find out whoever did it. You know, these transitions would be so much better and more forgivable if they weren't used as often as they are. I mean, throughout this 5-minute scene, they're just constantly used. And everything that they show after the transitions aren't necessary to show the audience. We don't need to see Scott checking his watch. We don't need to see the strippers talking. Just show one shot of the werewolves looking for their friend and one shot of the girls leaving the club. That's all you need. Stop trying to pad out the running time with this bullshit. So the strippers all start to head home and run into Franklin.
Hi.
Franklin! Is this a new car?
No.
Why did he answer like that? Justice and Scott end up going home together, and he explains that he has houses to sell, and the two kind of go their separate ways. Honestly, there are some very decent characters with very decent and believable relationships in Strippers vs. Werewolves, but these two are not one of them, despite being the main characters. Justice is the main stripper that we follow throughout the story, and her character is just not interesting at all. Her only personality trait is that she's kind of stupid, and she was the first one to kill a werewolf out of the strippers. And Scott is just kind of a dick. He even acts like a dick towards Justice, making me not really care about their relationship, which is obviously going to face some turmoil later in the film when Justice realizes that he's a werewolf and he realizes that she's a stripper. This is something that we should be looking forward to as audience members because it's going to create some drama, but I just don't give a fuck. They're not a good couple anyway. If they break up, I don't care. Plus, the actors here don't have any chemistry. They act really awkward and stilted around each other, and they show no affection towards each other at all except nearly fucking at one point. This just isn't a believable relationship, and it's annoying that it's the main one that we focus on. I mean, for crying out loud, Franklin and Danny aren't even dating yet, and I care more about their non-existent relationship than the main characters and their relationship. These two actually do have chemistry, and they have actual moments of character development and very clearly like each other. I mean, Danny buys him an ingrained pair of knuckle dusters, something very cute considering he fights often, and that shows that she knows him well even though they aren't even dating. That is cute. That makes me care about their relationship. When did Justice and Scott have a moment like that? Spoilers, they don't. How can you write about two very decent relationships that I as an audience member give a fuck about, but then fuck your main one up so badly? It should be the main focus of your script, man. Oh shit, the chavvy Powerpuff Girls have shown up.
Is you a prostitute?
No.
My mum's a prostitute.
Oh, lovely.
God, I hate chavs so fucking much. So, Justice starts having nightmares about the man she killed, and her and Scott start getting it on when she bites him. Now, you would think that she's somehow turning into a werewolf because of her encounter with the guy in the beginning for some reason, since that's a logical conclusion to come to, but she's not turning into one until after she bites Scott and his blood infects her. This scene of her remembering the incident from earlier in the film is completely irrelevant to her biting her fiancé and wasn't needed, and she just bit him hard enough to draw blood because she was feeling extra kinky or something, not because she was turning into a werewolf. I don't know what I expected from a movie called Strippers vs. Werewolves, but I guess even just expecting a sensical story is too much to ask nowadays. Oh! Anita Sarkeesian's in this movie. So, it's discovered that Janet's fought the werewolves before when she used to own a strip club back in the 80s, which is very relevant to the explosion that we saw at the beginning of the movie.
What? Huh? Come on, pay up. 20 quid. 20 quid. Huh? Come on, come on. Fiver. Cheap.
Why did they do that? It can't have been to censor the boobs because they've already shown tits in the movie. What is happening? This is what I mean about the editing. Seriously, this should just be a comic book. Also, that is not how stripping works, woman. If I could make money that quickly and easily, I would just drop doing YouTube and quit my job. They are actually walking like this in public. This is a fetish that I don't think I can get behind. Anyway, the werewolves kill Franklin since he obviously has something to do with the murder of their friend, and Danny gets there for the first date that they were gonna have and has to run away. One of the only relationships in this movie that I actually cared about, and it's already over. God damn it. However, for some reason, Justice is seeing all of this, because apparently becoming a werewolf means that you're able to see things that are happening nowhere near you. I didn't know that werewolves were able to do this, but okay. So Danny goes to Raven's house since she knows more about the occult than any of the girls in the strip club, and she asks her boyfriend for help. But he's a bit busy, you know, doing that thing that he does, finding vampires and all that. So Raven manages to keep them from transforming with her sunbed and shoots one of them in the nuts.
Next.
Fucking bitch!
I'm gonna kill you so slowly, your driving license will expire before you do.
That's actually a good line. I'm gonna steal that. The werewolves end up leaving because none of them really want to be shot in the balls anymore, and Ferris goes to see my boy Robert Englund. And I'm not just saying this again because I love him to pieces and he's one of my favourite actors, but he is the best thing about this movie. His acting is pretty damn good despite how stupid the film is, and him being a villain is very, very, very fitting. He is quite intimidating. But, like I said before, he's only got 10 lines in the movie, so we don't get to enjoy his performance for that long, because we have to get back to the exciting werewolves and strippers and amazing, exciting events of this movie. So, as some kind of revenge for what happened to their friend, the werewolves go and visit the strip club to take out some of the strippers.
You killed a werewolf. When were you going to tell us?
Why would she have told you that? You wouldn't have believed her anyway. What rational person would believe someone who said, oh, by the way, I happened to murder a werewolf the other day? Justice finds out that Scott's a werewolf, and Scott finds out that she's turning into one, and she's a stripper, and the boss has this no girls rule about werewolves, so there's this weird couple standoff thing.
Silver bullet.
Looks like we've got a Mexican standoff here.
Not really. I've got a gun, and you've got a knife. More of a Mexican, I'll shoot you if you move, you evil murdering son of a bitch.
Good acting there, girl. Damn, Oscar worthy. So, now that we're an hour into this thing, we're finally getting to the final scene of the movie where the girls all band together to take out the werewolves, and it's not interesting or exciting at all. The girls start off their plan by stripping for the werewolves, and the creatures get excited about this even though they're there to kill them, and it's very obvious that the girls have a plan, and they should probably be a bit more suspicious of them, but whatever, there's boobs and there's dancing and you know, all that stuff that werewolves love, apparently. Also, they're all dressed like Little Red Riding Hood. Get it? And they dance to the most suicide-inducing song I have ever heard.
You know you make me feel good. Oh yeah, you make me feel fine.
So even though this is supposed to be the massive climax of the movie, I really did not enjoy it. It was boring. The shots are very bland, the strippers are trying really hard to be badass and sexy, but because they're bad at stripping and aren't good actors, it does not come across well. There's this stupid tally that keeps popping up of who gets killed and who doesn't, and it's really distracting, and the only good part of the whole sequence is Raven's boyfriend coming in. But he's not really doing anything except standing there being funny. You'd think with a name like Strippers vs. Werewolves, the whole sequence would be, you know, entertaining. Anyway, the place gets blown up, just like the club at the beginning of the film, because the head of the club dealt with the werewolves before by blowing the place up, and even though it clearly did not work the first time, she decided that it was the best course of action to do this time. And because most of the strippers have now become werewolves, and apparently if you gather the parts of a dead werewolf you can bring them back to life or some shit, they get brought back and become good werewolves who can fight other ones and keep people safe from other werewolves or something. Boom! That's Strippers vs. Werewolves. I hate this movie. I tried really hard to like it. I really did want to. I wanted to like it in that bad movie, ironic kind of way, but it couldn't even make me like it in that way, which isn't difficult. You just have to be an entertaining movie. Your film doesn't have to be good for me to like it. I love good movies, but I also love movies like The Room, Lavalantulas, and Oh Zombie, because at least they don't allow me to be bored while I'm watching them. They are good fun as movies, and they're movies that I would rewatch because they're fun to watch. They're movies that I don't regret watching. But this one just wasted my time. I don't like the main characters, which is kind of a massive flaw in a film where you spend most of your screen time trying to develop these characters that are just not interesting and are kind of annoying. The only characters I really liked were side characters that didn't get that much development or screen time. I didn't like the story, I didn't like the cheesy acting or the terrible editing or the fact that it was trying to be a cool comic book Sin City-esque movie. Everything just kind of felt off. Not even seeing tits in the movie was good enough for me. I've said this before with the Beast Bunny, but if I wanted to see tits, I'd just watch porn, or, Google naked women or something. If a good bad movie happens to have tits, it's a plus, but you can't make your audience like your movie by shoving some hot naked girls into it. Especially when their stripping abilities leave something to be desired, and there are barely any naked tits in the film. And the one chance that you had to flash them real quick, you just shoved a comic book picture in there. I hope you guys understand now why I said that this movie should have been a comic book. As a film, it was just kind of boring and dull. I hated every second that I was watching it except for maybe the first few minutes, and so did my friends. I would definitely not recommend this one at all. It may sound cool by the title, but you're just gonna feel as though that hour and a half was wasted by the end of it. If you want to watch a bad movie with hot naked girls in it, then I'd pick up Zombievers. It's way more fun and way more enjoyable. And it has nicer tits, hotter girls, and jokes that actually work and make you laugh rather than just leave you shaking your head. I never thought that these words would leave my mouth because of how ridiculous they sound. But strippers versus werewolves fucking sucks.